When I went to medical school, it was unusual to have somebody who was 50-year-old being diagnosed with colon cancer. And now we're actually seeing people in their 30s and even in their 20s. And even some teenagers have been reported being diagnosed with colon cancer. So what is going on? Who are the people at highest risk? Is it a toxin we're exposed to? Is it water? Is it microplastics? Is it something in our food? Is it something we're eating? Is it something we're not eating? Vaping is actually in some ways a lot nastier in terms of the chemicals that are involved than cigarettes and tobacco. And by the way, they also lower the risk of developing certain forms of cancer, including colorectal cancer as well. Today I'm going to talk about colon cancer. It's something that everyone should know a little bit about because of how important and how common it is. First of all, what is colon cancer? It's a cancer of your bowel. That's the lower part of your intestines. And it's one of the most common cancers affecting both men and women. And it's starting to be diagnosed in younger and younger people. When I went to medical school, it was unusual to have somebody who was 50-year-old getting colon cancer, being diagnosed with colon cancer. And now we're actually seeing people in their 30s and even in their 20s. And even some teenagers have been reported being diagnosed with colon cancer. So what is going on? I think to understand what's going on, we need to review this condition and think about the things that we can do to lower our risk. What are the things that if we have it, we can actually use to treat? And of course, how do we actually stay as healthy as possible to avoid any kind of cancer in terms of including colon cancer? So watch this video to the very end, and I'm going to give you some practical tips. All right. So first of all, as I said, colon cancer is one of the most common cancers of the bowel. That's your gut. So when you hear about gut health, colon cancer is one of the cancers that makes your gut unhealthy. So what is the gut? Starts with your mouth, goes to the back of your throat, down your esophagus, into your stomach, right? So then when you're eating, that's part of our bowel, the upper part of our bowel. Then it goes into our small intestines, and then it finally goes to our large intestines. And as our large intestines actually starts to go up on one side of our body, the upper right side of our body, and then it makes a cut across like a beam, and then it descends on the left-hand side. That's the ascending colon, the transverse colon going across, and then the descending colon, and then it goes to a little pouch called the rectum, and then is the anus. That's the poop chute, right? So basically when you eat food, that's how it goes down, literally. Now, the colon is that part that goes up on the right, across the roof, and then comes right back down, okay? Is basically like an upside down U. That is an area that is very sensitive. The toxins that we can actually eat and is exposed to pretty much everything that we do eat, which is why we really want to be careful about our diet and make sure that we are eating more healthy foods and staying away from unhealthy foods. Now, why does this matter? Well, the other thing I need to tell you about the colon is that it is the place where your gut microbiome, a lot of it actually lives. In fact, the first part of your colon is called the cecum. It's a little pouch from the small intestines connected to the large intestines. The cecum is where your appendix actually is, and that's where a lot of your gut bacteria, the 39 trillion bacteria we call the microbiome, actually lives. Now, this is a little hive of healthy bacteria that do all kinds of good things to us when we actually feed them beneficial foods. And they love polyphenols, which we know come from healthy plant-based foods, and they love dietary fiber. I'm going to come back to that because dietary fiber is really important when it comes to colon cancer and response to treatment. But in general, when you eat polyphenols, colorful foods, fruits and vegetables, whole plant-based foods, you're feeding the gut microbiome, all right? All these healthy bacteria, they are thriving. When you give them dietary fiber, which also comes from plant-based foods, now you're really giving them the nourishment, the sustenance they need. Now, how do these gut bacteria pay us back? Well, they actually release, they metabolize the food that we give them, and they release these metabolites called short-chain fatty acids. or SCAFAs. And you may have heard about these. I've talked about them before, but many people who talk about gut health discuss short chain fatty acids. Those short chain fatty acids get into our blood. And you know what they do? They lower inflammation. Now, why is that important? Is because inflammation is one of the triggers of actually cancer growth. Cancers are forming in our body all the time, all right? But most of the time, they never become harmful. And in the colon, for example, the environment of that colon makes a huge difference as to whether the cancer is going to grow or not. Imagine a tube, that's your colon, all right? And you've got cells in the middle, all right? These are the epithelial cells of the colon. They're normal, okay? You're born with normal cells and they stay normal. Now, they're made of tough stuff because think about it. Your colon is getting all the stuff that you eat, all right? It's exposed to everything. And it's got to be able to replenish itself. In fact, the lining of the colon gets sloughed off. The bacteria are growing there, healthy bacteria, that is. And if you expose that area to a lot of toxins, not only can you injure or impair or get rid of your healthy bacteria, then your inflammation goes up. But if you damage that lining or you mutate that lining, the DNA, guess what? That is the setup for abnormal cells to grow. Those abnormal cells in the colon actually are called dysplastic cells, which then can start to form colon polyps. And if you have colon polyps, that can also eventually turn into colon cancer. All right, so a polyp is sort of an abnormal type of cell. A cancer is you take it to the next level of abnormality, and now it's a full-blown cancer, and it just keeps on growing. More inflammation in that area, the cancer is going to grow even faster. Now, many of you will know somebody who has had cancer, and it may be colorectal cancer. And so there are many, many people who have been affected by colon cancer. Who are the people at highest risk? Well, there are some genetic factors for colon cancer. There is a condition called FAP, that's familial adenomatous polyposis coli. These are people who are colon polyp formers. They can form hundreds of polyps in their colon over the course of their life. And for those people, the more polyps you form, the more likely one of those polyps is going to contain a cancer. And so when you've got hundreds of polyps forming, it's really, you're fighting a way uphill battle to try to deal with that. Ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory bowel disease, also puts people at very high risk for colorectal cancer. What is ulcerative colitis? Well, it is an autoimmune condition where actually you're having lots and lots of fissures and ulcers eating away at the lining of the colon. It's that repeated injury and inflammation. Remember, we're talking about inflammation. That is a setup for cells to go from normal to abnormal or dysplastic. They can form polyps, or in the case of ulcerative colitis, they can just skip that polyp step and they'll go straight into developing an abnormal cancer. It's kind of like a wound that's not healing, but you keep on wounding it, and those cells in the area that keeps on getting injured add some inflammation to it. You wind up actually having a big setup for a colorectal cancer. So that is another condition that puts you at high risk for cancer. Now, there are other conditions like Lynch syndrome, which is also it's an inherited syndrome where you can also be at very, very high risk for developing colorectal cancer as well. But what you need to know is that, like all cancers, the majority of cancers are really due to diet and lifestyle. Only the minority are due to genetics. All right. So diet and lifestyle is what we think is the reason why people are being diagnosed earlier and earlier with colon cancer. All right. That's a real surprise and a real concern as well. It's unlikely to be a big gene mutation that's actually occurring. And so we're beginning to ask the question, is it something in our environment? Is it a toxin we're exposed to? Is it water? Is it microplastics? Is it something in our food? Is it something we're eating? Is it something we're not eating that we should be eating that sets us up for this? Why do we think it might be something that we're eating? Well, if you take a look at some of the dietary risk factors for colon cancer, you have things like alcohol, which put you at higher risk for colon cancer, but also eating processed meats. Processed meats are considered a carcinogen, and you know that anybody who is a health seeker will hear from experts that you should cut down or cut out processed meats, hot dogs, bologna, salami, all those deli meats. All right, they've actually been classified as a carcinogen by the World Health Organization, meaning that they are linked, they are associated, high intake is associated with the development of many cancers, but especially colon cancer. Think about it. You're eating processed meats, they're going down, they're parking themselves in your colon before they get pooped out. What's left gets pooped out. We think that the chemicals in it, nitrosamines, the TMAOs, all those types of things that can be formed by processed meats actually are setting up for that inflammatory environment. Okay, lifestyle, diet can be important, but let's talk a little bit about lifestyle. Smoking increases the risk of colorectal cancer. All right, so we used to talk about cigarette smoke, but now we're also thinking about vaping. All right, vaping is actually in some ways a lot nastier in terms of the chemicals that are involved in the vaping liquid than cigarettes and tobacco. So if you smoke, don't smoke. All right, that's actually something that's good for your lungs, but also good for your lowering your risk of other cancers by cutting out and not smoking anything. Alcohol is another one. A sedentary lifestyle is another lifestyle risk factor. If you're sitting around all day, you're not exercising, you're not moving, all right, pretty much your gut microbiome isn't going to be as healthy. Your levels of inflammation might go up. Your metabolism is going to be out of whack. Your hormones are going to be out of whack. All the things that happen when we don't exercise, move regularly, all right? Even taking a walk can actually make a difference in terms of helping your overall health, including your immune system. And that brings me to something that's really important, because what does smoking do? What does alcohol do? What does a sedentary lifestyle do? Well, it actually not only causes more inflammation in your body, which is a setup for all kinds of cancers, including colorectal cancer, but alcohol, smoking, sedentary lifestyle, and eating ultra-processed foods with additives, preservatives, they actually suppress your immune system, okay? And so if you don't have a good immune system, your body is compromised in one of its most important health defense systems against cancer. Now, I wrote about this in my book, Eat to Beat Disease. All right, you might have seen this. If you haven't, this is a book that's not about disease, it's about health, but there's a lot in here about what you can do to lower your risk of cancer, including colorectal cancer. So let me tell you, your body has these health defense systems. Your immune system is one of them. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But what are the health defense systems of the body that protect you against developing colon cancer? Well, there's 5 of them. All right. You've got angiogenesis. That's your body's circulation. And it normally feeds healthy organs and healthy cells. And it does not allow your body, your blood vessels, to feed unhealthy cells, including cancer cells. Right. So your body naturally has this control mechanism: feed the good ones, starve the bad ones. All right. Second, stem cells. Your body can renew itself. So when you've got abnormal cells and you're able to get rid of some of those abnormal cells, your body will replenish it with fresh, healthier cells. That's your stem cell system. Third, your gut microbiome. Now, we already started talking about the gut microbiome. Healthy bacteria lowers inflammation, improves your metabolism, actually puts you in a better mood, the gut-brain axis as well. And a good, healthy gut bacteria lowers the risk of many different types of diseases, including cancer. We think that abnormal gut flora, gut bacteria, unhealthy neighborhood, we call it dysbiosis. may wind up being one of the contributors, one of the factors in cancer that's been hidden in plain sight all these years. So now there's a lot of research looking at that. That's your health defense system, your gut microbiome. Fourth, your DNA. Now, your DNA is your genetic code, but actually not only does it tell your body how to make proteins, but in fact, your DNA is hardwired to protect itself against harms from the environment. Ultraviolet radiation, radon coming from the ground, off-gassing, solvents that you might be breathing, gasoline fumes, microplastics. Listen, all these things can mutate your DNA, which is really the setup for cancer. But thank goodness that health defense system can fix DNA, can neutralize incoming stressors that could damage your DNA. And it can also slow down the rate of cellular aging as well. So your DNA is a really powerful health defense system. And then finally, we're getting to the immune system. So angiogenesis, circulation, stem cells to replenish abnormal cells after they're gotten rid of, your gut microbiome, your DNA to protect itself against toxins and the environment, and finally your immune system. Now your immune system is very important when it comes to cancer because your immune system actually is responsible for a little bit of useful inflammation. When you injure yourself, you need a little inflammation to rush to the site of injury, clean up all the bacteria, make sure everything is in good shape, and then inflammation goes up, and then your body turns it down. Your immune system turns it down, turns it off, frankly. All right. And now you're back to normal. Healing can actually complete itself. But when there's abnormal chronic inflammation, now you've got this firestorm that's actually going on. And in fact, inflammation is like pouring gasoline onto the embers of a fire. If cancer's around, inflammation will just make it go whoosh and grow even faster. Your immune system normally turns down inflammation. It can control it. And the other thing your immune system does is it acts like an army of super soldiers that go out and patrol your body with different types of immune cells. And these immune cells are on the lookout trying to spot abnormal cells. So think about it like cops on a beat, policemen in a quiet suburban neighborhood, just patrolling the streets looking for bad guys, right? There are normally no bad guys there, but whenever they see one, they're on the lookout, what do? They stop the bad guy, question him. If anything's suspicious, they throw him in the back of the paddy wagon and take him away. And that's what your immune system does. It patrols your body for cancer cells. When it sees one, it wipes it out. So that's why, despite the fact that our bodies are forming cancers all the time, all right, because our cells, we've got 40 trillion cells dividing. Every mistake that a cell makes in dividing can be a microscopic cancer. How many of these mistakes are made every 24 hours? About 10,000 mistakes in our DNA are made every 24 hours. All right. So why don't we get clinical cancer more often is because our immune system looks at those abnormal mistakes in our DNA, spots an abnormal cell, and neutralizes it, takes it out of the equation. And so that's why even though we would form microscopic cancers commonly, we don't actually get sick. We don't develop cancers as often as we do. So these are 5 health defense systems: angiogenesis, stem cells, microbiome, DNA, and immunity. I write about this in my book, Eat to Beat Disease. And what I tell you in my book is that there are lots of foods that activate all of these defenses, all 5 of them, shields up, and they protect us against many diseases, including cancer, including colorectal cancer. That's why I always say you can eat to beat disease, you can eat to beat cancer. And there's an overwhelming amount of data that shows that when you eat bad foods, harmful foods, ultra-processed foods, that actually put you at risk for developing chronic diseases like cancer. When you eat healthy foods, think Mediterranean diet, Asian diet, traditional Mediterranean, traditional Asian diet. Okay, what winds up happening is you're eating a lot of whole plant-based foods packed with polyphenols. They activate your health defenses. They've got dietary fiber that activates your gut microbiome, feeds your gut microbiome. Inflammation gets lowered. All right. Now you've actually raised the shields lower the inflammation that would actually cause cancers, spark cancers to grow even faster. You've tipped the balance in your own favor. This gave you a ton of information about cancer in general, but I want to tell you a little bit more about colon cancer. And that is, we can screen for colon cancer in people who are at high risk or people who are 50 years and older. And now even the recommendations are going younger by having a colonoscopy. By doing a colonoscopy, you are actually allowing your doctor, a gastroenterologist, to be able to take a look inside your colon to look for those abnormal cells, look for those polyps, look for any early cancers that might be going. It's very, very important because once you get to that age where you might be forming a colon cancer, getting a colonoscopy can be life-saving because if you spot a polyp, okay, what we do, so first of all, let me just tell you how you get a colonoscopy. If you had one, you know exactly the deal, the drill. But if you haven't had one, I want to demystify it for you. Basically, your regular doctor, your GP, your family doctor, your PCP, primary care doctor, makes a referral to a gastroenterologist. They basically get your information, make sure you're healthy to be able to get a colonoscopy. And then before you get scheduled, you're scheduled to go in, you get a clean out. And you've probably heard about these clean outs. Basically, if you want somebody to take a look, a really good comprehensive look at your colon, you want it to be clean. You don't want junk in there, and you know exactly what kind of junk I'm talking about. So you get it cleaned out. That's why they call it a clean out. So basically there is a liquid you drink. So you don't have anything after dinner the night before. You start guzzling down this fluid. You know what it does? It flushes you out, right? You just have a lot of loose, liquidy stool. This actually just keeps the stool moving along. You get a clean out, so the next day you've got nothing in your colon. Everything is flushed out, which is a good thing, because then when you get to the gastroenterologist's office for the colonoscopy suite, you get a little infusion of medication into your arm, and you basically get sedated. So like you go out like a light, you won't remember anything. It doesn't hurt. The classic count backwards. And then when you're out, basically the gastroenterologist takes a colonoscope, goes right up through your rectum, takes a look around, and can see pretty much every part of your colon. All right. And by looking around, they're looking for polyps, they're looking for ulcerations, they're looking for little signs of colon cancer. Anything that is abnormal, they'll find it. And they take pictures along the way. If they see a polyp, what do? Well, a gastroenterologist doing a colonoscopy can actually put a lasso around it, snake it, take a picture first, put sort of like a polyp selfie, put a lasso around it, put a little electric current, zap it, and pull it right out. That then gets sent to pathology to make sure it's not a cancer, all right? But you can actually take out your polyps, and this is the kind of screening that is very important for early detection of colorectal cancer. For colon cancer, the earlier you detect it, the more likely you're actually going to be able to cure it. When it's later stage, now you need to pull out bigger guns to be able to tackle it. All right. So I will make another video that will talk about what are the guns that you pull out to tackle colorectal cancer. But I already told you in this video that one of the things that you can do to lower your risk of colorectal cancer is you can actually eat healthy, whole plant-based foods. And that's fruits and vegetables, nuts and legumes, herbs and spices. They all have the polyphenols that actually feed your gut microbiome, healthy gut bacteria, which then lower inflammation, also activates your immune system. You can cut down on or cut out eating processed meats. You can actually have a healthier lifestyle by avoiding excess alcohol, don't smoke, all right, cut down drinking, stay physically active, lower your stress. All right, that seems to be one of the contributing factors to developing cancers as well. Listen, this is a tall order, right? There's a lot of things in your life you got to control. You can't control everything, but when it comes to using food, we got to eat 3 times a day. I'm just telling you, there's a way to actually eat more dietary fiber, more polyphenols. And by the way, coffee and tea also lower the risk of developing certain forms of cancer, including colorectal cancer as well. Green tea contains polyphenols called catechins that are powerful ways to cut off the blood supply to cancer. I write about this in my book, Eat to Beat Disease. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend the book to read. It's got a ton of cancer preventing, cancer starving foods in there. Coffee also has chlorogenic acid, which also lowers inflammation and is also cancer starving as well. Vegetables that actually have cancer starving properties, brassica vegetables, so broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, arugula, isothiocyanates. These are sulforaphanes, natural chemicals that can actually cut off the blood supply feeding a cancer and also lower inflammation. Beans, legumes, white beans, black beans, pinto beans, chickpeas, soybeans, edamame, all of those actually are a rich source of dietary fiber. Olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, contains polyphenols like hydroxytyrosol, oleocanthal. Those also lower inflammation and have cancer-starving properties as well. And omega-3s, seafood with the healthy omega-3s. Now, we used to think it was only salmon or lower on the food chain like anchovies and sardines, mackerel. But in fact, even cod and halibut and even shrimp and shellfish like mussels and clams, they also have healthy omega-3s, omega-3 fatty acids, actually cut off the blood supply to cancers, anti-angiogenic, lowers inflammation. All of this can contribute to lowering your risk of developing cancers, including colorectal cancer. I hope I've actually given you a little bit of information about what you can actually do to lower your risk of cancer and have a little bit of an understanding about colorectal cancer. And I'll make another video to talk about some of the more advanced treatments for colon cancer beyond chemotherapy. So if you like this, hit the like button, subscribe, and watch for my next video. Dr. Lee out.